Hello everyone and welcome to the Beyond the Big Six YouTube channel, and today we are talking about the relegation battle because West Ham's result at Tottenham this weekend made it very interesting at the bottom of the Premier League. So we're going to look at the fixtures of West Ham, look at Burnley as well, and look at some of the other teams who could potentially be in danger if one of the bottom three was able to go on a little bit of a run. So we'll start with West Ham. And we'll look at their fixtures. And I've picked out from their games that they've got from now at the end of the season, which ones I think are ones they can target. And I've found 10 winnable games for them. So I'll go through them. They've got Sunderland at home, Burnley away, Manchester United at home, Bournemouth at home, Fulham away, Wolves at home, Palace away, Everton at home, Brentford away, and Leeds at home. So they are the games I've picked out from the final 16 that I think West Ham can realistically look at and go, yeah, we can pick up points in those ones. It's not to say you can't pick up points in the other ones, but if you're playing the top teams in the Premier League, you don't expect to necessarily get positive results. Whereas those other games that I picked out there, I think West Ham can realistically think they've got a chance of getting at least a point from. So with those 10 games, if we say that they can get, say, 15 points from those games, that would finish them on 32 points. Now, I think they could probably do a little bit better than that. I think maybe 16 or 17 points is more realistic, doubling their points total and putting them more on 34 to 35 points, which therefore means if you want to stay up in the Premier League this season, if we're saying 35 is kind of the most you would realistically expect West Ham to get without them going on a crazy run of form where they, say win 6 games from now at the end of the season. Something, of course, they have not done to this point. I think they've only won 4 to this point. So it would be a big leap to see them win sort of, more than 4 or 5 from now at the end of the season. So unless they go on that crazy run, I think realistically the most you would expect West Ham to finish on is probably 35 points. So 37, 38 points, I think, is a good total for the other teams in the Premier League who are looking over their shoulder a little bit to target. If we look at Burnley, and we'll touch on them, in terms of their winnable games, I think they've got 12, to be fair, from now at the end of the season. So their fixtures are a little bit kinder, I think, than West Ham's. They've got Spurs at home, Sunderland away, West Ham at home, Palace away, Brentford at home, Everton away, Bournemouth at home, Fulham away, Brighton at home, Forest away, Leeds away, and Wolves at home. So Burnley's fixtures, I think they've got a few more there they can pick up points in. But what I would say is that Burnley, they haven't won a game in so long. I don't think there's a lot of positive momentum. Of course, they picked up some good points. They obviously got a really good draw at Anfield. But even with an upturn in form for them, is it realistic to expect them, when they've only won 3 games this season, to maybe win another 4 or 5? I'm not 100% sure. I don't think we've seen enough to suggest that. But if they got 15 points from now at the end of the season, that would put them on 29, which probably isn't really enough to put anyone in relegation danger, unless, of course, West Ham and, Forest or Leeds or whoever else really had a horrible end of the season where they barely picked up a point. So I think for Burnley, they would have to go on a crazy run to have any chance of surviving the season. I just don't think it's realistic for that to happen. So I think we can say that Burnley are probably going down unless something miraculous happens. Wolves, I don't see the point of going through theirs. They'd have to pick up like a minimum of 25 points to really have any chance of survival, and I just don't see that happening, especially if they are going to sell players. So I don't think it's worth worried about Wolves right now. I think West Ham, of the 3, of course, they are 18th. They've got the best chance of the 3 of staying up. No doubt about that. So if we are saying that we can expect West Ham to finish somewhere in the region of 32 to 35 points, are there any teams in the Premier League that should be worried, and which teams should be worried for that matter? Now, while I would look at the awful form of Tottenham and Crystal Palace right now, and both of them teams feel like they're in a little bit of disarray as I sit here and record today, I think that it'd be hard-pressed to see them not picking up at least 6 to 9 points from now at the end of the season with the quality that both those teams have. So I'm going to say that they are probably safe, and I don't think they are going to be looking over their shoulders too much. Now, it can change, of course, if you lose, say, 3 in a row and West Ham win a couple of games, and that margin gets a little bit tighter. But as we sit here right now, the quality that both Tottenham and Palace have, I don't think West Ham should realistically be looking at targeting them. And look, if you can drag them in, of course. But yeah, I don't see them both struggling that badly from now at the end of the season. The other team down there in that sort of bracket with them is Bournemouth. They are also probably safe for the same reason, but the reason why I think they should be a little bit more worried is that defensively they are so bad. They've conceded 41 goals this season, can't keep clean sheets, so maybe they are a little bit more in trouble. They've also only got one win in their last 14 Premier League games and the FA Cup in there as well. So Bournemouth are in really bad form, it's fair to say. They don't lose necessarily all the time, but they are conceding a ton of goals and they are struggling to get victories over the line. So Bournemouth, of those three, I think are the ones you can probably be the most worried about. So if we look at the form table, in the last 10 games, the current bottom three are the bottom three of the form table. If we look at the last 6 games though, we see Palace and Forest in the bottom three. Palace with 2 from the last 6, Forest with 4, and West Ham also have 4 in that time. So Forest would seem to be the team in the most danger. Does that make it kind of a direct shootout between them and West Ham? Well, what about Leeds United? We haven't even mentioned them yet. And they were the team, I think, a month ago we were looking at saying, well, it's going to be West Ham and Leeds dueling it out until the end of the season. Now, of course, they play on the final day as well, just to add another interesting nuke to this equation. But Leeds in the last 10 games, they have picked up 14 points. They're 9th in the form table. I think, before we dive into Leeds a bit deeper, but I think Leeds will be fine. I'm not worried about them. I can foresee a world where, maybe it does come unstuck for them, but I've been pretty impressed with Leeds, and I think Leeds are going to have more than enough to stay up. But their next 6 games are very, very interesting, and I think this could be where Leeds could end up getting dragged into a fight. So they've got Everton away, Arsenal at home, Forest at home, Chelsea away, Villa away, and Man City at home. And if Leeds struggle through that period, there could be a world where West Ham get 3 wins. If West Ham beat Sunderland, beat Burnley and Bournemouth, they get 9 points there. So that will put them on 26. That means the gap to Leeds is going to be much smaller. If we say Leeds get a win against Forest and a draw against Everton, that will put them on 29. So we could end up in this period where if West Ham were to pick up 3 wins, which I think they could, and Leeds were to get 4 points, which is probably realistically what you'd expect from them fixtures, we could be sitting here with 10 games to go with there being a 3-point gap between the two teams, which is quite mad to think considering how well Leeds have done recently. And I think at that point, you would have to say that the pressure would, of course, be on Leeds if the points gap shrunk that much. So I think Leeds will be fine. I think Leeds will stay up. But I do think Leeds have to continue picking up these points, because if West Ham are to get momentum, then Leeds could come into, their vision and potentially be a team they topple, especially if they play on the final day. If there is 2 points between them come the last day of the season, then it is in West Ham's hands to survive. But I think Leeds will be fine. But I think you've got to, include them in this debate still, even though they've been very impressive recently. Right, Nottingham Forest are the ones that are closest to West Ham. They're currently 17th in the table. And the table would suggest they are in the most danger. And I would say that my eyes are telling me that they are probably in the most danger as well, especially when you look at the European games they could potentially have. And we'll go through their fixtures and include where those Europa League games could fall. And if they finish outside the top 8, they could have potentially 2 extra games on top of that as well. And currently they are outside the top 8 in the Europa League as well. But Forest have clearly got a very talented team. A lot of the discussion around them is, well, they've got so many good players that they won't be in trouble. They'll find a way. They'll get out of it. But when I watch Nottingham Forest, I'm not seeing that. And Sean Dyche football with this group of players, I don't think it's necessarily working. I think there is a little bit of discontent there among the Nottingham Forest fans. And look, Dyche is known for grinding out results. Well, do you know what? So is Nuno is known for that as well. And I think both haven't really set the world alight since they've taken their respective jobs. So Forest are clearly the easiest team for West Ham to catch. And yeah, it's whether or not Forest can find that 13, 14, 15 points that they'll need from now at the end of the season. So we'll go through their fixtures, including the Europa League dates. So they've got Braga away this week, then they play Brentford away, They've got Fearnachevos at home, then they've got Palace at home. So while Brentford away and Palace at home look like games they could win, adding in those Europa League dates, especially travelling to Braga and then Brentford at the weekend, it's going to be very difficult for Forest to get through them periods when those other teams have that rest. They've then got Leeds away, Wolves at home. They've got a Europa League game. Then they've got Liverpool away. Then they've got a Europa League game again. Then they'll have Brighton away. So that's if they don't finish in the top 8. If they finish in the top 8, then they will have clear weeks at those times. Then after that, so you've got Brighton away, Man City away. You've then got another Europa League game if they get through that round. They've got Fulham at home, another Europa League game. Spurs away. If they get through that, they've Europa League period. They then have a Europa League game after that. Villa at home, a Europa League game after that. Burnley at home, Sunderland away. Then if they're into the semi-finals, they'll have a Europa League game. Chelsea away, Europa League game. Newcastle at home, then Bournemouth at home. So their fixture list is going to be very congested compared to the other teams at the bottom. Now, I know that West Ham and Leeds and Burnley, for that matter, are all still in the FA Cup. But if Forest are to go on a decent run in the Europa League, which I think their owner wants, because it could get them Champions League football next season, I think that, their fixture list could be quite intense, which could cost them points. As we have seen with Forest all season, they have generally struggled after Europa League games. So Forest need to pick up 15 points from those fixtures, really. That would put them on 37, and I think that would probably be enough to stay up. Will the Europa League games matter? Will that... They could go out with the Europa League after the first knockout stage and therefore give themselves a clear fixture list. That's probably what Sean Dyche wants. But I think Forest are wanting to go hard in that competition. But can we see Forest getting 4 wins, 3 draws maybe from that run? Can they get 5 wins, a couple of draws? Really put themselves out of danger. And yeah, that's what West Ham are essentially chasing. Look, they've got some games in there you'd expect them to win. You look at, say, Palace at home. Well, they're in disarray. You look at Wolves at home. That should be a game that they target to win. They've got to play Fulham at home. They've got Burnley at home. They've got Newcastle and Bournemouth at home. So all those games feels like ones Forest could win. And not only that, they're games that they would expect to win, but they haven't been like that this season. They haven't been consistent in picking up their wins. So ultimately, to tie this up in a bow, West Ham's win at Spurs is giving them a chance. They are still comfortably the favourites to go down, in my opinion. They have to play it probably above 1 point per game to have any real chance of staying up, and they haven't, of course, done that so far this season. But if they were to play at, say, 1.3 points per game, it does give them a chance of staying up. And if they can find themselves 5 wins from the last 16 games of the season, a few draws in there as well, I think it will have teams, particularly Nottingham Forest, potentially Leeds, potentially Bournemouth, potentially Spurs, potentially Palace as well, will have them looking over their shoulders, which should make it interesting. I mean, I would love to see a relegation scrap in the Premier League this season. But let me know what you think. Let me know if you think West Ham have a chance to stay up, whether or not they've maybe left it too late to find this form, especially with their kind fixtures over Christmas. Do you think West Ham have got a shot of surviving? Let me know in the comments section below. Thanks for watching. Thanks everyone as well for continuing to watch this channel. Please subscribe if you enjoy the content, and we'll catch you again for another video.